All right, we're back.
Okay. My name is Jack Kenny. I'm a member of the Community Media Access Committee, and I'll be filling in tonight as the chair in the absence of our chair and vice chair, unless one of them shows up or one of the vice chair shows up. And so I think the first order of business is the land acknowledgement statement. And
yeah, we can do the land acknowledgement statement and then I'll do the roll call.
Okay.
So that'll be me. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated villages of the Lejeune. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now makes this their home.
Thank you. Julian.
Indeed.
Okay, so now we'll start with the roll call. Member Kenny?
Present.
Member Lewis? See that? Member Newton? Could I ask you to unmute, please? Okay, let's see. I'll try this. I can see the verbal. There we go. Member Newton.
Happy New Year.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Great. Thank you. All right. Member Siegel?
Present.
Member Stapleton Gray?
Present.
Member Vice Chair DeMatthew is expected to be late tonight, and the previous chair, Chair Winkelstein, has resigned. Okay. All right. So next.
Yeah, I don't have the agenda in front of me, I'm afraid.
Okay. So next is the approval of minutes. Here.
Okay. Everyone had a chance to take a look at those? Yeah. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from October?
I move that we approve the October minutes.
A second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No? Okay. We'll go to a vote. Jeremy?
Okay. So the Member Kenny?
Aye.
Member Lewis?
Aye.
Member Newton? Member Siegel?
Aye.
Member Stapleton Gray?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, next we have public comment.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
Doesn't look like we have anybody here in the audience right now.
All right.
All right, so next we have announcements. So staff and committee member announcements.
Okay. Anyone on the committee have an announcement? No?
Okay. I have just a couple of announcements. I've been keeping the committee up to date on what's happening in the City Hall Council chambers. So we've got our new cameras installed, and we are ready to go with hybrid in-person and virtual public meetings. As of the latter part of December and the first part of January, we were looking at end of March, potentially April, for coming back in person, but it's kind of a moving target as with anything these days. So we're ready when the city makes the decision to bring public meetings back into person. And we've been doing a number of tests with our equipment to be able to ensure a good Zoom experience for people on the virtual side and a good in-person experience for the people who are there in the chambers with us. So it's been fun working through that. Excited about bringing this all together. And looking forward to seeing people in person on the dais again.
So Jeremy, there's no target date for it then?
As of the last 3 weeks, we've been looking at the end of March potentially, but that may change.
Yeah. Anything else?
That's all that I have.
Okay. Member Siegel, did you want to report on the film fest?
Sure. The Film Fest is open for submissions as of January 15th. We have gotten a few submissions already, so that's exciting. And please tell your friends that it's open and spread the word. That's what I've got to say right now, I guess. Jack, do you have something to add to that?
No, that was the main thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's it for announcements.
Okay, good. Next one is presentations. I've got 2 presentations for you tonight. The first one is basically just an overview, reminders for being on an advisory body. Just I'll kind of go through it here in a second, but city staff is going through just some of the reminder basics for all of the advisory bodies at the first meeting of the year for the committees and commissions. So give me a moment and I'll share my screen here and we'll go through this together.
Jeremy, excuse me.
Yeah.
Do we want to have someone take the minutes for tonight?
No, I can take care of all of that. One of the good things that's been happening now that we have a new agenda management system in place is all of that can easily be done with inside the software. So
okay, good.
Go ahead and do that. So one less thing for the committee to have to do. All right. So tonight is just the advisory body handbook overview and reminders. Just to remind everybody of the purpose of the committee. Purpose of the Community Media Access Committee is to serve as an advisory body regarding matters related to city media and communications, and to advise the city council on matters related to media access, community engagement and outreach, and information regarding local government matters in the city. Go back. The advisory body role is to advise the council on matters within the committee's scope of responsibility, providing analysis and recommendations on policy. The scope of responsibility is defined in the 2021-2023 work plan approved by council at the end of last year. And the committee is to prioritize items on existing work plan during the tonight's meeting. Attendance policy and quorum requirements. Members expected to attend and arrive on time to all regular and special meetings. Notify staff of planned absence at least 24 hours in advance. Excessive absenteeism is grounds for removal from the committee. And CMAC quorum, since there are 7 members, is 4 members. So we have looks like we have what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in attendance. So we met our quorum for tonight. For lack of quorum at the start of the meeting will have to be canceled. The Brown Act. So we've looked at the Brown Act a little bit for the people who've been on the committee for some time, we've covered this before, but just as a reminder, the public commissions, boards and councils, and the other public agencies in the state exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. It is the intent of the law that their actions be taken openly and that their deliberations be conducted openly. All meetings must be conducted in compliance with the Brown Act. Do not discuss, deliberate, decide on matters before hearing all public comment or on items not on the agenda. The proper discussion format is presentation report, CMAC member questions, public comment, and then discussion and decisions. CMAC starts at 6 p.m. and the established end time is 7 p.m. and there needs to be a motion to extend past 7 p.m. if necessary. Subcommittees. So subcommittees are ad hoc committees and they are composed of members less than a quorum, 3 or less, only for a limited purpose and have a limited timeline. And these meetings of ad hoc committees are not subject to the Brown Act. All right. Let's see. Any questions so far? Okay. And tonight, what we'll do later in the meeting on the agenda is the chair and vice chair election. So the role of the chair will oversee public debate, ensuring public comment is heard. The chair facilitates meeting and decision making, helps staff set the agenda, and the vice chair takes place as the chair in event of chair's absence. Chair, vice chair reorganization to provide the opportunity for all members of advisory bodies to hold a leadership role. The advisory body handbook states that the position of the chair and vice chair shall be rotated on an annual basis in January, February. Although not recommended, if the advisory body agrees that there is a strong preference to continue with the existing chair and vice chair, they may serve for a maximum of 2 consecutive years in the role. And tonight, later, we will begin with the chair election, then vice chair election. Nominations can be made by any committee member, and nominations do not require a second. But we'd want to make sure that anybody who is requested to be a chair actually wants to do that. So we'll have that discussion later. Nominations are voted on one by one, with the last person nominated voted on first. Majority vote secures a position as chair or vice chair. And that's my presentation on the advisory body reminders. Do you have any questions?
Jeremy, when did we elect the current chair and vice chair? Wasn't that middle of 2021?
I think that was at the third meeting. Actually, I think that probably was at the April meeting.
April, okay.
Yeah, but it could have been at the January meeting. Because we had 4 meetings last year. It might have been the first one in January.
Okay, so it would be time to do that anyway. Elect chair and vice chair.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone on the committee have any comments about that presentation?
Okay, just review. There was a memo in the agenda packet. If you got a chance to look at that covers this information as well.
Okay.
All right. So the next one is getting back to the fun stuff. Let me get to here. A communications update. One of the things that we talked about at our last meeting is coming back on a regular basis to provide the committee with updates for the city's communication tools that KALB has purview over. Websites, social media, and some of our means of communication. So I'm going to share some of that information with you tonight to kind of give you all kind of a base point for where we stand in terms of how we communicate with the public. So let me share my screen again. All right, so right now, the first thing we'll start with is our e-news stats. So e-news is constant contact. It is our email, our weekly newsletter that we've been doing since about 2016, growing our subscribership all the way. We use Constant Contact to deliver weekly e-news messages to one primary list, but we also use that service for the recreation department, for the business community, some other smaller lists. But right now we've got over 10,000 subscriptions, which has grown significantly in the last 2 or 3, about the last 2, slightly before, before the pandemic, probably 2019, we've seen the most growth. We added a pop-up subscription window to the city website, and that's gathered quite a bit of subscriptions. But just within this last year, between the 1st of January and January 18th last week, we have 1,700 new subscriptions. And that is in addition to the 403 unsubscribes that we've had. So it's grown significantly. We, over the course of the year, have sent 375,000 messages. That's in total. And it has become one of the primary ways that the community receives information on a regular basis. As I go through this, if anybody has questions, feel free to jump in. We can save it to the end, but if something comes up, about any one of these particular means of communication, feel free to stop me.
One question that I have real quickly, if you're not going into it next, can we see engagement with this email? Because I know I read them every Friday or Saturday, depending on when I have availability, and sometimes I'm clicking in to different things. I'm just curious to know.
I didn't bring that in, but I do have access to some of the engagement stats, especially with that service. We can see down to the click-through rate on any of the hyperlinks, and we can see that. I would say even though we have this many sends and this many subscriptions, we have about a 40% open rate on everything that is sent. A fair number of the external links get clicked on, and we tend to prioritize the most current and the most important information at the top. And so we see a lot of engagement on those first few items, especially the first few items that show up on mobile. We get an equal amount of engagement through both desktop and mobile. So it's about a 50-50 last I looked at it. But when I come back, I plan on to do this on a quarterly basis. So when I come back, we can, if the committee would like, I can look at more in-depth engagement, especially on this platform. I can see a lot more of the analytics.
That's great. It sounds like a solid start.
Yeah, it's pretty good. There are some things that we can look at in terms of additional features. We can do surveys within the context of within the newsletter if we wanted to ask questions or solicit information. Right now it's very one way. We don't do very much with this platform that asks information back from the audience.
I know that one of the things that we're tasked with is understanding accessibility to the internet. And so I'm wondering, over time, it'd be nice to look at a snapshot of, how many people that have access to the internet are subscribed, and seeing if we can grow that. Because if we can get 40% of those people to open and at least know that they might see the messages that we're delivering, that could be huge.
Good. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay. Next, this is the activity guide. We had the first activity guide since 2020 come out this last year. It was a big effort, and we've made some changes from being primarily recreation guide, which highlighting recreation activities, to shifting to more of an Albany activity guide with more features about the business community, other activities outside of recreation, cultural events, and the like. So this is also one of probably the primary analog means of communicating to the public about policies, incentives, accomplishments between from the city to the Albany community. There are some features in there about public works, about community development, housing issues, in addition to all of the recreation classes that are provided to the city. There were 8,705 copies that were mailed to Albany addresses. So each household that we have an address for receives a copy, and then they're available for pickup at city facilities. So that's the extent of that distribution. But it's one of the things that the city is looking at is modifying this publication to have more relevant, up-to-date information about ongoing policies and issues around the city. And even though this is not necessarily a KALB program, it's one of the primary ways that the city uses to communicate with the community. Any questions here on the activity guide? Okay, so YouTube, this is our primary means of sharing our public meetings, and that's probably the majority of our content. It is the majority of the content on the channel. Currently, we have 774 subscribers with a total of 31,000 views over this last year. And over the last year, 144 new subscribers have joined. we get the most attendance and viewership from school board meetings. That's the primary. That is TV gold or YouTube gold. There's a lot of interest in school district content. We get anywhere from 30 to 200 people in a live stream meeting, and then viewers on the back end. As we go through this, whatever the committee would like me to add for some other metrics of what we're looking at, I've just kind of given you the baseline of where we're at. But I can certainly look at the total number of views and kind of the arc of who's tuning in when for our live streams during the course of any particular meeting.
Jeremy, what's the pathway for someone to become a subscriber to the YouTube channel?
You just go to the YouTube channel and hit subscribe on the KALB channel. That's really all you have to do.
Would they be going there because they went to click on an agenda for the school board or the city, and then
that's one way. Yeah. We have it featured on our website. Everywhere that we have social media links, we have a link to our YouTube channel. So anytime you see the YouTube icon on City of Albany content, that's where there's a hyperlink, it will take you directly there, and you can hit the subscribe button. Our agenda management system now is connected to our YouTube account. So anytime somebody goes to a meeting like this one and they click on the video, they either watch it within the media environment of the agenda in the minutes and the documents, or if they double click, they'll take you directly to the live stream or the viewer on YouTube. Any questions here? Okay. Next up, we'll go through pretty quickly. I didn't really dive into the metrics or the analytics of our social media accounts, but I thought I'd give you some of the stats of we have a fair number of followers cumulatively. So each one, the largest following that we have is City of Albany Police Department with 2,580 followers, Recreation Department 2,026, City of Albany side has 1,166, and Albany Film Fest has 952 followers. So depending on the content, we likely would push information about a given, if it's appropriate, a citywide effort, public meetings. We would send those and broadcast those to all of our Facebook sites, with the exception of Albany Film Fest. Film Fest, typically, if there was some sort of citywide event that would be appropriate to share with Film Fest subscribers, we would push that out. But typically, most of our information goes to Recreation, City of Albany side, and the police. Some things are very specific to police, some things are very specific to Recreation, and some are specific to Albany. But typically anything that will go to the Albany Facebook page can go to most of the others. Any questions on Facebook? Okay. Instagram, this is, a little bit different. Over the course of the pandemic, we didn't do a lot with Instagram, other than sharing some, just sharing content that was going to Facebook. We don't have as many followers in the world of Instagram between Albany, Recreation, and Film Fest, but it was one area that we will look to grow. But it's kind of a different audience in terms of the content. Of course, we want to share public information, but not all of our public information already has good-looking graphics that work well within the context of Instagram. Some stuff that shows well on Facebook or in a newsletter. Sometimes we don't have the staff, the time to reformat or recurate that content in a legible way. A lot of times we get 4x6 flyers from an external organization that has a lot of text on it, and those don't read very well if we're just going to share that as a JPEG image. So some things, if they're not already created for us, or if we don't have time to create a graphic with, doesn't work as well on Instagram. Okay, Twitter. We don't do much on Twitter other than share the same content that goes to our other locations. However, I think this is important that we maintain an active Twitter account primarily for the event of emergency information. In the event of an emergency, it's a very good way for us to share current up-to-date information, but that also requires a lot more work on the back end here with the city to create a stream of information that the public can access and get to, and we're just short-staffed in terms of who is able to produce regular content and up-to-date content that goes out to Twitter. We have a half-time public information officer and myself and a variety of staff that have access to the Twitter account, but we don't have a designated person who is overseeing the totality of the media communications. And I think that would be a goal for the city to really focus on having an active Twitter account that is sharing more regular information, so that in the event of an emergency, everybody already knows to go there, and that information is ready, active, and accurate. So next, just mentioning LinkedIn, because that is one of the other ways where we disseminate information. We don't have a big following, but most cities keep an active LinkedIn account for professional development, as well as recruiting new employees. I see some possibilities of growing that and communicating there, but that doesn't necessarily go to an Albany audience, although there are many Albany people who are on LinkedIn who may see that information if we were to share it there. But we do, when we publish information through to social medias, we always click on to and share it to LinkedIn as well. Next is our e-notify that is through our website. So if you go to our website and go into any one of the e-notify pages, there are categories that a resident can select and be updated with email notifications for those particular areas of interest. So currently we have a total of 2,148 active subscribers. Aren't a lot of metrics available for this, but is one of the primary ways that we communicate both news items and calendar items from the website. So anything that we create on the website that is either a news item or listed on the calendar, we can schedule updates, and those people who are interested in those particular updates, say housing element, dogs in parks, waterfront, city council meetings, there's probably close to 75 to 100 different categories. You can select all of them or select those or just a few. And when there is an item that comes up that pertains to that particular category, that user will be notified. So in the last 3 months, we have sent out over 39,000 emails. In the last 6 months, over 77,000 emails to the Albany population who is subscribed to that. And then here we're looking at the different websites that we have. The primary is the Albany, California, albanyca.org. We have averaged over 50,000 visits in the last 90 days, getting between 400 and 700 hits, at least to the front page on a given day. We have a variety of other smaller project or program specific sites that we manage. The San Pablo specific plan, these are sometimes websites that will exist for a period of time because we have a particular activity happening right now. The specific plan has been happening for the last 3 years. Solano Complete Street started slightly before that, but they're still active sites. And these are places where we convey very specific information and or share that content with a consultant who is running the program so that they can keep that information up to date. So we will build the site, manage it, and we can take a look at some of the metrics. Albany Film Fest is similar to that. It's a site that we run for the film festival, and that attracts a significant amount of attention over the course of the year, and is a good kind of front-facing view of what the city is, what the city can provide for culture and arts here in the community. We have two new sites that will be coming online. Ready Albany is a disaster preparedness site that we started slightly before the pandemic. And because of some staffing changes, we didn't really come back to it. But that's one of the things that I will be tasked with over these next few months, is creating a website that has current, up-to-date emergency disaster preparedness and emergency information available to the public. And then choosealbany.org is a business economic development focused site that will come online probably in the next couple months, that showcases what Albany has in terms of resources and amenities, and connecting with some other products that the city subscribes to, that shows vacancies in the real. I'm still learning a little bit about it, but you'll be able to go to the website and see what spaces, commercial spaces, are available, and how to find out about incentives to get into those particular spaces to cultivate business here in Albany. And with that is the end of my presentation for the areas of communication which I either oversee or am involved in with KALB.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Anyone on the committee have any comments or questions about Jeremy's report?
I just have one quick question. With some of the social, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and even LinkedIn, is there any thought that we could, from a hiring staffing perspective, leverage the high schools or some of the youth in the community as interns, or as a way to help and kind of own that, since it's very much a part of their everyday, it seems?
Yeah, it's been discussed. We've looked at possibilities for internships. I think, as we're really, as obviously the city has limited staffing right now during the pandemic, that's something that we can look at. I think we'd want to look at it globally for the city, as opposed to how it's typically been done as department by department. And I think that's what we're looking at now, that we have somebody in place who is in the public information officer area, who's interfacing with all of the departments right now. But it's a challenge to get, for hiring somebody to do social media, somebody who doesn't already know what's happening. You have to provide all of that information to that person before that they can share it. So that's kind of the bottleneck. Where do we create all of that content that is accurate? Somebody writes it, puts it all in place, or do we have somebody else learn it, write it, and provide it to somebody who can vet that information before it goes out to the public? So it's kind of a process question, but with the right person, I think, we'd be, very interested in looking at that. But even though young people are great at social media, there's a lot of what we've learned through experience is there's a very specific voice that the city needs to use in terms of its communications, that not everybody automatically knows that. And there's a lot of teaching and training that would have to, go along, and some guidance in order to make sure that sharing that information, or one, creating the content and then being able to share it. So it's the content creation, or the kind of bringing everything together in order to parsing it out, what's an effective communication strategy for whatever's happening.
Cool, thanks.
Okay. Jeremy, have you noticed, just in sort of seat of the pants analysis, is the pandemic has increased a lot of the use of those internet, online, social media with the city? Can you attribute it?
Well, probably the most significant thing that we've seen is obviously an uptick in attending virtual meetings, right? Like that is something that as a city we didn't do before, certainly to the public, and so I think that sort of engagement is a new area for the city, and so we've seen certainly a lot more connection to our YouTube channel. But in terms of the rest of social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, it's been steadily growing the more that we create engaging and interesting, relevant content for the public. A lot of times, it's just sending out there, and items don't get a lot of attention, but that's not necessarily what the city is doing. It's sharing that information as opposed to trying to create conversations around that, so that people see that there's a meeting and they can come to the meeting. Meetings have definitely meeting attendance has increased in a lot of ways, because I think attending virtual for a lot of people is easier than coming down to a facility. And I think that's one of the things that we can definitely capitalize on as we move back to in-person, recognizing that there is a benefit to people's ability to attend virtual meetings and be involved virtually.
Yeah, because it sounded like your comment about the school district meetings, that definitely had an effect with the pandemic and people concerned about their kids in schools and all that. So
those meetings also, when there was a engaging topic, or they were also in person prior to the pandemic. A lot of people would show up on site too. Those were some of our most attended meetings, exceeding capacity for the building.
Okay, good. Do we need to ask if there's any public?
We had one attendee, but the attendee has since left. So,
okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. So we'll move on to the next item.
Okay. So the next item is discussion and possible action on matters related to the following items. We have two reports from the Bulletin Board and Advisory Body Delegate subcommittees. I'm wondering if anybody was able to meet over these last few months with their respective committees. Did that happen? Is there anything to report? Maybe we'll start with the Bulletin Board subcommittee.
Yeah, I didn't meet. As I told you, I thought we were waiting for instructions, so maybe there was a miscommunication. But
it was partly miscommunication, but I went back and looked, and yes, the chair and I were definitely going to reach out and generate those first steps, but that didn't happen, and I'm sorry I didn't follow up to make that happen. So Bulletin Board didn't meet, but I know that I think the Advisory Body Delegate Committee, I wasn't sure if you were able to meet, if that was part of that. Okay.
No, I don't think so either. And it feels like this was the last meeting we had was a whole COVID generation ago.
Yeah, right.
But there's been a lot of other things happening over the last 2 months.
Sure. So what we can do, since we don't have anything to report, we can move to item 6.2. And maybe take a look at the work plan again, specifically with those two committees, and create a plan now for the next series of meetings, should the committee want to continue to pursue, these particular items.
What's the sense of the committee? Do we want to continue with those two items that we have, the Bulletin Board and the Advisory Body, or are there other items that we want to work on from the work plan?
I don't have the work plan in front of me, so.
Oh, I can bring it up for a moment if people want to take a look. Let's see, where are we at? I think this is where we're at. So can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll move through the work plan items. Quarterly report from the city containing city communication analytics and metrics. We got that, and we got some updates on, so that's good. Let's see, recurring action items. We're looking at the assisting the city in creating annual survey on city communications that is accessible, multilingual, using various city collaborations to obtain this information. Let's see, increase access. Let me know if I'm going too fast or if you want me to stop. Accessibility to non-internet users. Recommend ways to create community partnerships, exploring and researching options such as print flyers, postcards, paper signs, kiosks, digital signage. That's one of the ways that we were looking at the bulletin board for the digital signage. Exploring citywide broadband access, free low-cost devices, access to electricity. This is part. Recommendations to city on how Film Fest can support city goals to promote arts, social justice, sustainability, and economic development. Recommendations and concrete steps for how the city can better communicate and share information with and or about Albany School District. Actively promote partnerships between the city and AUSD, including city internships, special programs in support of KLB operations of their city functions, creating opportunities for students to present at council meetings. Okay. One-time action items. Assess the results of the first annual survey done by the city in 2021. Using that assessment to make specific recommendations to the city related to communications with community. Template for the quarterly city report. That's done. Recommend the city of Albany develop an external communications plan that clearly defines and codifies methods and parameters. Print media, website updates, guidelines and recommendations for how CMAC can help advisory bodies work synergistically. That's looking at the Delegate program. Guidelines for the city of Albany to act as a centralized location for disseminating relevant and appropriate information from outside private NGOs in a fair and unbiased manner related to issues that impact the community, such as health equity, climate change, sustainability, housing. This kind of ties into the Delegate program to a degree, or at least you can,
depending on what those other committees are working on, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So if you want to take if anybody wants to take you want me to keep this up on the screen for you, or is that good enough for right now?
I don't need it up, but if other people do.
I've got one up here myself.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there anyone who wants to propose something different from the two we had talked about at the last meeting? The advisory body and the bulletin board?
Yeah, I think so. As a member of the Delegate Subcommittee, I think I'd be happy keeping that, but making my contribution to that, reaching out to AUSD, having been on the school board, and sort of starting some of that discussion, as well as this last recurring action item bullet point on better communication sharing with AUSD. I think that falls under more or less that category of delegate and outreach.
I think one of the things that the committee was talking about at the last meeting is something as simple as attending a school board meeting and announcing during public comment that there are communication channels in Albany, and and letting the school board or the parent community just know what the different avenues are, and that CMAC is here. So come to a CMAC meeting and express your thoughts.
Yeah, and that's absolutely something I can do, and folks will be relieved if I show up and I don't raise other issues like why the students don't get graded math tests sent home.
I think for the Delegate program, one of the things that should come out of subcommittee meetings is how to structure that and recommend, come up with some sort of very simple kind of 1, 2, 3 bullet points that can easily be shared with other committees, and how that would work and what's an effective way to encourage other people from other committees to get involved with other committees, where there's overlap, and where those connections can be made. For that advisory committee, that's Naomi, Sandrine, and Ross at this point. Does it seem realistic that the three of you could get together within the next month or so and come up with some more concrete recommendations or programs? Or is that something that would be better done with a special meeting of CMAC over these next couple months? Since the next meeting here for CMAC isn't until April, would we, we don't have a chair right now. We will at the end of the meeting, but we could work with the chair to call a special meeting if we need to meet again in February or March to go over this. Or is this something that would be easy to do in a subcommittee outside of the context of a regular meeting?
Probably easy outside.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we need a whole. What do you think?
I think so.
Yeah. Fewer people.
So you could meet through Zoom, say, and work on something?
Yeah.
I can create an open Zoom meeting that I don't need to attend, and I can provide you with a link so you don't have to use your own account, and it's unlimited time. So
okay.
That's something that I can do for both committees.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the bulletin board would need me at the
Yes.
beginning, to kind of go over what some of the options are. But I think from there, looks like that's Jack and Julian together. I think, Charles, you missed that last meeting. There's certainly room for you there or for another committee if we're going to create another subcommittee around other content. But right now, so Julian and Jack, I could certainly set up a Zoom for us to meet initially, and then that same link would be available for the two of you to get together and talk about specifics over the course of, whatever works for your schedules.
Okay, that sounds good. Julian, you okay with that?
Yep, that works for me.
Since we're coming up with another 10 minutes until the meeting, until 7 o'clock, are there any other parts of the work plan that we should look at together tonight as a full committee before getting to the election of the chair and the vice chair?
Couple of words, okay, Jerry?
I'm sorry?
Say a couple of things, Jeremy.
Oh, yeah. Are there any other items on the work plan that we may want to cover before we move on to the next item that don't already have a subcommittee? Is there anything else that we should discuss on the action items, the recurring or the one time, that are of particular interest, right now? Since we're in a different COVID generation,
I just wanted everybody to know that I'll be happy to volunteer or help in the film committee or whatever. I'm there to support everybody. And
Great.
yes, I would like to follow up on the committee to create the trade shows or, for help and health and all of that.
Actually, on a separate note, Member Newton, there is going to be a citywide help fair that is happening in May, I think April or May. I'll pass on that information. That may be I know you had mentioned different community awareness fairs. I'll pass that on to you. That's actually something that's happening. I can share that with you offline.
I think to address your question, Jeremy, I feel like we have enough to do just doing the two things we haven't done yet.
Sure. So maybe we'll work on that and then set a goal to come back with some concrete steps that may be able to be implemented at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So does that look good for everybody here?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So that moves us on to next item 6.3, which is election of chair and vice chair. Now we're missing one member right now. It looks like Vice Chair DeMatthew is not able to attend. Do we want to proceed with the election of the chair and vice chair tonight, or wait until the beginning of the next meeting to do that when perhaps everybody's here and there's another person who has been appointed from Mayor Gary at the next meeting?
Someone to take Julie's place, you mean?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Chair Winkelstein was appointed by Councilmember Gary, and we're still waiting for. I think there are people, but if you actually know of anybody who is interested in applying, I think the applications are still open for that position.
Okay.
Or we can move forward. Either way, it's we don't need to take a vote to have a vote.
Yeah.
But informally, if it's on the agenda, we can proceed. It's kind of the will of the committee, what you'd like to do.
Yeah, I would say that the need to have a chair or vice chair at this point is kind of moot, given that we won't have another meeting until, and we as subcommittees have the authority and ability and maybe even the time to move forward and do those things. I'd be happy to start the next meeting with an election of leadership. That'd be fine by me.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't be fair to nominate Sandrine now when she's not around.
Right. Yeah, I was hoping we could find out whether she's interested in the chair position.
Yeah.
So it would be good to have her at the meeting.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think you'd want to elect her in and have her not be here.
In absentia.
In absentia. Okay, so that takes us to future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items that the committee would like to add?
The obvious one that leaps out from the work plan is to hear the thinking on the next survey the city's going to do, to both give them feedback on how it was done and how it might look going forward, and any thoughts the city has on what they've collected.
Okay. Survey. All right. We'll see what I can provide for that. All right. Any other future agenda items?
This might be on there by default, but I guess updates from the subcommittees.
Yeah. Yeah, that will be there by default.
And another thing, from having been on the library board, it might be possible to get a presentation from the library on essentially media outreach. I know they used to give statistics on meetings held, communications done, laptop checkout, connections to the Wi-Fi, that sort of thing. So maybe a short presentation from the library staff.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. If we're looking at, are there any other, I'm just wondering, would it be of interest to the committee to, we're looking kind of holistically, it doesn't have to be the next meeting, but maybe later on the year, the school districts communications, if we're looking at outside agencies, does the committee want to look at it from that perspective? If certain things are being provided to the community through the library, is there another equivalent agency that's here in Albany that the committee would like to hear from, that we could reach out to and ask for more information?
Well, I will certainly be talking to the district, probably one or two of the board members and maybe someone on staff there. So I can get a sense of that and report back at the next meeting.
Yeah. So maybe just a school district update, something like that. Okay.
Jeremy, at some point, I'd like to get a budget update. I don't know if it's necessarily for next meeting, but
okay.
just so we see where we are with the PEG funds and what's been spent.
Got it. Okay. All right. Any other?
Okay.
Doesn't look like we have any public here to ask questions. No other other agenda items. Okay. All right. So before we leave and adjourn the meeting, the next meeting is Monday, April 25th, 6 to 7 p.m. I will tomorrow, if you don't see Zoom links to for both of these committees sent out to your email addresses, please send me a note. But it's my intent to send those out tomorrow so that I do not forget, and then we can move forward and set up a time where the two committees. Does the advisory body delegate subcommittee, would they like me to attend that first one with you two to talk through any of those things, or you fine doing it on your own?
It could be helpful.
Okay.
You know things we don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, and Sandrine was supposed to be on that committee as well. So
Correct.
if she'd like to be, we should make sure.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Then that's it. It was very good to see everybody tonight. Thank you all for a great meeting.
Could I ask one thing, Jeremy?
Sure.
Is Member Newton, do you have any interest in being on any of these subcommittees right now?
Absolutely.
No.
That's why I tried to say
Oh.
I'm happy to support you any way I can.
Okay.
All right. Well, we can look at, because I think there's going to be new subcommittees that we'll need to look at going forward. So we'll do those assignments for the new subcommittees at the next meeting.
I'm really excited about doing the fair thing because I have relationships and I know how to do that, and I have good relationships in the film industry also. In case you need support, so I'm here to. If you need me, just let me know.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, good to see everybody again.
All right.
And
Likewise.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.